Hey everyone, it's Spencer Hawes here, and it's Friday today. It's the weekend, it's a Friday afternoon, and I've done several interviews this week actually. I think it's 6 or 7, and I just finished one, and I think it was my favorite interview of the week. It's an interview with Jared Bauman. He is a Niche Pursuits reader, and he bought a site, that was making about $250 a month. And he has grown it over the past 9 months to where it's making about $1,100 per month. And so he's grown it about 5x. And he's implemented some really basic but interesting strategies that I think a lot of people could implement into their own sites. And so I've got Jared on. He's going to tell the whole story about the criteria he used to buy the site, where he bought it, and hint, it was on motioninvest.com, which in full disclosure, I am a partner of. But he also talks about the type of content he produced on the site, the type of link building that he did, and overall structurally what he did to the site. So there's some very specific strategies, 5 or 6 strategies that we talk about that he used to take his site from, like I said, about $250 a month to $1,100 per month. One of those that's a really interesting strategy that we'll dive into here is basically getting a site to where it can qualify to get on a premium ad network. And his example, it was Ezoic. And so he was able to grow the site past that 10,000 page views per month mark. And as soon as he did, he immediately added, it was $300 or $400 per month to the site just like that, which is basically doubling the income of the site. And so listen in for Jared's story. Not only is it really interesting, but I think there's a lot of tactical strategies and tips that you can take and apply to your own site. So here's the interview. I hope you enjoy listening to Jared Bauman. Hey, Jared, welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Spencer. It's great to be here. I've been a long-time listener, so it's great to come on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And for listeners or watchers, we have connected in the past, actually. We have met in person. It was last year, I guess, March-ish, 2019 at Traffic and Conversion Summit, right?
Yep. It was, down here. That's one of the great conferences that we get to have I live in outside of San Diego. So it's great to have people come in for that conference. And we were able to, I think, have breakfast or coffee or something.
Yep. Got to sit down, have breakfast, and chat business a little bit, which is awesome because I work from home, and so I'm blogging and being online a lot, and so it's really great to be able to connect with people that have either found my content or are on my email list, or just be able to chat with them in person. So that's how we have met in person. Of course, we've interacted quite a bit actually over the years. You've been sending me lots of feedback for Link Whisper, which is great, and I appreciate. You were one of the first beta testers there, and so you provided lots of good feedback on getting that going. But I want to introduce you to the Niche Pursuits audience here. So why don't you explain what you do professionally? Just give us a little bit of your background there.
Yeah, sure. I've been an entrepreneur, most of my life. So I've been running different businesses throughout the years. Started off as a photographer, had a business that served photographers, and for the last couple of years have been running a marketing agency. So it kind of lends itself to this space we're talking about with building websites. And so got into building websites probably 3 or 4 years ago. And that was where we started connecting actually in the Niche Pursuits. I think probably the Facebook group was the first time we started connecting, but and I have been doing that ever since.
Very good. So how's the digital marketing agency going?
It's going really well. COVID has turned already a model that, is a good model. And for someone like me that has a lot of marketing background, a lot of online experience, that was something that we always were growing, but kind of growing slowly. But then COVID hit and a lot of businesses were forced to go online, or at least take more of their marketing efforts online. So that has been a big source of growth this year. So it's been busy.
Yeah, that's interesting. So a lot of in-person businesses have been required to shut down, but you've actually seen it as a growth agent for your company.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, a lot of it has come from both local businesses and these kind of more national brands. I think there's also another factor at play that a lot of businesses are going through, which is ad costs are just skyrocketing. And so, from the election year and from all the different factors that Facebook uses, they just kind of keep charging more and more. So those two factors, COVID and then ad costs, have had a lot of people looking for alternative ways or different ways to monetize and market their business.
Yeah. So what type of businesses are you typically targeting, or what type of companies are typically coming to you?
Well, my background in the creative space means that we tend to work with a lot of businesses that are trying to market services. And it could be anything from the local veterinarian clinic here in town to another local business that might be selling, several franchises like a pizza shop, all the way up to large websites that are selling a service that might extend across the nation. And they need help with their online marketing, connecting all the dots from their email system and their email marketing to their SEO, to their social media content and stuff. So, but it's a pretty even split in terms of size of companies, but most of them are in the service industry.
Okay. So when they come to you, did they basically say, hey, we're online, but we know we're not doing a good job. We just want to make more sales. Can you help us? Like, is it usually that generic?
It pretty much is. It's like, yeah, we have this email list, but we don't really know what to do with it. Or, yeah, we're tired of spending money on Facebook ads and we hear about this thing called SEO. Or it always comes back to the same question, which is we just want to take more control over how we market our business and how we grow it. And we just feel like we don't have enough control over it.
Yep. That makes sense. So are you a solo guy? Like, what's the size of your team? Like, yeah, what's involved there?
Yeah, so I am the majority owner and I have a minority business partner. And then she heads up most of all the content stuff that we'll do. And then we have a technical director as well. And so he heads up all the technical side of what we do, like the website, the web tech type of stuff. And then we have just a small team of 4 to 6 people that do a lot of the kind of behind the scenes work, the implementation, the setup, the execution, the reporting, the monitoring, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And are they all located in San Diego area, or are you guys a virtual company located all over?
We are all over. Well, myself and my business partner and then our technical director, we're all in San Diego. And then everybody else is just spread across, whether the US or across the world,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very cool. So I'm glad the business is going well, that COVID has not impacted you negatively there. So that is a good thing. But I want to dive into what you're doing outside of that, right? You've kind of had this side hustle of building sites, it sounds like, for a few years. And so maybe explain kind of, just your experience with sort of building your own portfolio of sites. How has that gone? Have you been just building and holding those? Have you been selling websites? Just give us a little taste there.
It's a great story. I mean, I was really hoping when I got started 3 or 4 years ago that I would have a shortcut, or I'd be able to, do all these things a lot quicker maybe, because I had this background in marketing, but I've made all the same mistakes that I feel like everybody else talks about, frankly. But yeah, so I started a site. I actually bought a pre-made site. I thought that might help a little bit.
Right.
And just basically in the first year though, probably 2017. It was 2017. Made a lot of the classic mistakes that you make along the way. But did end up growing that site. I still have that site to this day. And that site kind of just putters along. And when I have time, I'll put effort towards it. But it just isn't now really a site that I look back on and I'm necessarily very proud of because of how much I've learned. And so I do have a different site that I started at the very beginning of 2018.
Okay.
And that's making anywhere from like $2,000 a month. It's kind of your classic affiliate site, but it's actually done very well with informational content. So it does well with premium ads.
Okay.
And then the site I think we want to kind of talk about today is when I first ventured into buying a site and was really intrigued by the process of kind of shortcutting the starting process and going straight into buying a site and seeing if you could increase the value of that. And so that's the other site that I have.
Okay. Very good. So you've got a few sites that you've worked on. You've learned a ton over the years, it sounds like, over the last few years. And it sounds like you did pretty well. If you've been able to build your site, to $2,000 plus a month, something that you built from scratch starting a couple of years ago, like I would call that a win, right?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting site I didn't really know what the potential was for it, but it was something I was interested in. So I think that was something that the first site, when I bought the site, I really went after a site that I thought had great potential, didn't necessarily care that much about the subject matter. This was a bit of the opposite. Cared a lot, enjoyed the subject matter. I was intrigued by it. And so I think that's been one of the reasons that's, for me, kept me in the game in that one, and then allowed me to keep growing because, an update will come out and you'll get a little ding,
right.
or something will happen that'll you off your high there for a little bit, and having that interest in the site has helped me stay focused on it over the years because it is a side thing for me. So
right.
It's I'm sure everybody who's doing it on the side understands. Sometimes it's hard to get the on a Tuesday night or a Saturday morning, but having that interest has made it something that has kept me committed to it over the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that is important, for people to have at least some interest level, right? The subject matter, although it may not determine how much money you're going to make, whether or not you're passionate about it, like the ability to stick with it and actually keep working on it. I think it's so important to have some level of interest in the actual subject matter there. So have you been writing all the content for that particular site that you have that interest level in that you built from scratch?
A lot of the beginning content, not so much now though. Not so much now. I just, I get so burned out on writing so quickly.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to outsource a lot of it though until I really understood not just what I wanted, but I also wanted to see what actually ended up working. And
right.
So for the beginning, I would write and try different things, kind of see what was working. But over the course of time, I built up some SOPs, some writer templates, and so now it's all outsourced.
Awesome. So you gained a lot of experience over the years. And then as you alluded to, and now we're going to focus on this for the most of the rest of the interview here, you decided, okay, I've learned a few things. Now, rather than starting from scratch again, I want to buy a site that already is making a little bit of money, has a little bit of traction, but you think has the potential to grow.
Yeah.
So maybe explain that process of where did you go to buy a site and why did you buy the particular site that you did buy?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been wanting to buy a site for a while. And so, the first thing you think of is, okay, why would you want to buy a site? It's most of the things you mentioned. It's a shortcut to a site that you don't have to wait for it to get out of the sandbox. You don't have to wait to see what's working and what's not working. You can kind of see right in front of you what's working and then understand potentially the plan to grow it. And it's just a big shortcut. It reminds me a bit of real estate. My friend flips homes for a living, which I would not do because I can, I'm not a very handy person, but he flips homes for a living and he kind of goes in, he buys the house, he does a lot of the work, and then he flips it in his case, a couple months and kind of has everything really dialed in terms of how much money he's going to make. So it kind of reminded me a bit of that. My goal with buying a site was always to buy it and then increase the value and then sell it. And so I realized once I decided I wanted to do this and I had the money, set aside for it, you just see all these sites depending on where you're looking, and you can really get paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
Because you're like, well, that looks good. Should I buy that? Should I not buy it? So I one of the most important things that about a month of that and really never pulling the trigger on anything because I just didn't, I knew I wanted to, but I didn't really know what I wanted. I sat down and really defined out exactly what I was looking for, exactly what I wanted the site to look like, and tried to get really, really narrow. And then what I told myself is, as soon as I find a site that meets all these criteria, I'm going to pull the trigger. And so I was on a variety of different, email lists for companies, and I was in some of the Facebook groups and just trying to pay attention when I could. And I kind of just committed to myself, like, hey, I feel good about this list of criteria. if I found a site like this, it's everything I want it to be pretty much. So as soon as I find it, I'll pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And it was actually Motion Invest that sent out a site one morning, and I looked it all over and I just checked it and I said, well, this is it. It meets the criteria. So I said, I guess I'm going to do this. So I bought the site probably 30 minutes later.
Wow. And well, I think that's really important though, is to know what you want to buy before you go looking to buy something, right? Otherwise, you certainly can. You can start to see opportunity with every listing that you look at, and you might end up buying the wrong thing that isn't the right fit for you. What was the list of criteria that you had for that site? Like, what was the parameters that you were looking at specifically?
Yeah,
what you're able to share.
Yeah, no, I knew you were going to ask that, so I actually wrote it down.
Okay.
I actually dug up my notes because I had it written down from before I bought the site.
Even better.
And this might not be everybody's list. I think that's something to be clear about. Is
right.
I'm happy to share my list, but I think everybody will come at it from a different angle. So here are the things I was looking for. I decided that I wanted to see some articles on ranking on page 1 of Google. And basically the reason being because that's one indicator to me that Google likes this site. If there's articles on page 1 already, that means I probably have a good chance of writing more articles than getting on page 1. So that's kind of just a bit of an important indicator for me. That was number 1. Number 2 is I wanted to see some consistent revenue. I didn't want to buy a site that had just gotten its first month of sales on Amazon or, one couple months of revenue basically. So that, it could earn money basically. It's a site that could earn money. I wasn't buying this potential because I could start one of those, but I wanted to buy a site that was earning money. And then I really didn't want much of a backlink profile to it because there's just so many things that people can do that don't show up in rank trackers, that don't show up in Ahrefs, this kind of stuff. So I really wanted as clean of a possible of a backlink profile, like no backlinks or, just, clearly backlinks that had just gotten picked up through time. Right. So, I figured I'm probably not going to find a site that has 0 backlinks, but I don't want a bunch of, stuff having been done to it.
That makes sense.
Let's see. So then monthly traffic, that was kind of an important number for me. I wanted it to be close to 3,000 to 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 visitors a month. And the reason, and it kind of dovetails with the next one, I didn't want it to be on a premium ad network like Zoic or Mediavine or any of these.
Okay.
Because I basically figured, hey, if I can get a site that's like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 7,000 visitors a month, and I can make some changes and tweaks to it, add some new content, and relatively quickly get it into that 10 to 15,000 range, I can get it on Zoic and then very quickly kind of double my money basically, or triple my, or add that instant revenue. And it's almost like getting that instant multiplier and stuff. So basically I was looking for a site that was in that 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 range and wasn't on a premium ad network.
Yeah, I think that, and I'll just touch on that last point. I think that's super smart. And that's something that I've looked for too, to buy sites, is that either they're really close to that threshold, like you mentioned, or maybe they're already well past the threshold, but they're either not using display ads or they are using just Google AdSense. I'll just share that for listeners that know Jake, and I know you know Jake Kane, I won't share a specific site, but he had an experience where he found a site kind of in with that same criteria in terms of it was, past the threshold for Mediavine but was not using any display ads. And so he was able to buy it at the purchase price. He was making Amazon affiliate commissions. And just by putting Mediavine on, he really did basically double the earnings.
Right.
So it was like a no-brainer. It's like, okay, I'm going to invest this much. I know tomorrow it's going to be worth 2x.
Yeah, you could not do anything and just turn around and sell it.
Exactly.
And you just, so yeah, I don't know if I heard that from, being in your group or just from, other people, but it just made so much sense.
Yep, absolutely. So I like the criteria that you've laid out. I think logically, a lot of those make sense. And like you said, other people are going to have different criteria and those worked well for you. How old was the site that you purchased?
I think just shy of 2 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So it had some articles that were ranking on the first page of Google. And what was the monthly traffic essentially when you purchased it?
Yeah, when we got it, it was at, I believe about 6,000 or so, 6,000 page views. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, 6,100 page views the month before we bought it.
Okay. And how much was it making the month before you bought it?
I think the trailing 6-month average, which is what Motion Invest was using, was $235, something like that, $235.
Okay. So let's skip everything in the middle just for a second and let's give the today stats, like how much traffic is the site getting today and how much is it earning every month?
So last month, it finally, for the first time, broke 30,000 page views.
Congrats. That's huge.
Yep. And I bought this site, I think about 9 months ago now. So just for context. So it's at 30,000 page views last month. And then the last month it earned $1,150.
Awesome. So page views is about 5x over 9 months, and the earnings is, help me do the math there. That's pretty close.
4.5, 5x. Yeah. 4.5, 5x. Yeah, probably about 5x actually. Yeah.
Pretty close. So first of all, huge congrats being able to grow a site 4 to 5 times, both traffic and earnings in a period of 9 months. That's huge. So if you were to sell the site, you would, essentially quadruple your money today, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got there, right? Like, what's the first thing? Or let me ask it this way: what do you think has been the most critical step to the success of the site growing so quickly? I
think that the site was just a very imbalanced site, and so I think from just a really high level, I just came in and made it look and feel and it made it into a legitimate site. It previously had just been a site where it had about 150 articles when I bought it.
Okay.
But I think 95% of them, all but a couple, were all individual product reviews. And they were really, really long, which is great. And the person who had built this site was really interested in the subject and really knew a lot about it. But it just didn't have cohesion, and it wasn't kind of a fully built out site yet. And so the architecture was bad, and the paragraphs were as long as an entire page on your screen. And there were no good calls to action. There were there were just basically a couple text links to Amazon. There wasn't any informational content. I could go on and on, but it just wasn't a site that was very clearly pulled together. And I think if there was everything that I ended up doing, kind of brought it closer and closer to being a site that just made more sense, both for Google and for the reader. So,
okay, so you stepped in and you made it not only probably look more professional, but architecture-wise and content-wise, structure-wise, it really became more professional.
Exactly.
Right. So let's look at some of those individual items that maybe you or individual steps that you took to get it to be that more professional site. Right. And actually, let me clarify as well. What was the division of income between Amazon Associates and display ads, or were there no display ads at the time?
There were no display ads. Yeah. Okay. So it was all on Amazon. It had that trailing 6-month average had come out of the holiday Q4 season. So it definitely had gotten a bunch of it had definitely gotten a nice spike during, November, December, and then had dropped back down after that. So most of it was coming from that period of time.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. So, maybe explain what you did with either the existing content, or was it mostly new content that you made, new articles that you wrote that started ranking?
Right. Yeah. Let's see. So right out of the gate, I didn't even have the site yet. As soon as I sent the money in and the site transfer was being, figured out, I ran a site audit on it in Ahrefs, and basically got back, and it just gives you a whole bunch of to-do lists, or to-do items, right?
Yeah.
And it's really mostly monotonous. It's not, most of it isn't rocket science. It's like redirects and broken pages and missing meta descriptions and all that. But the site just had a ton of it. So as I was getting the site transferred over, I made a big, big, big long to-do list of all the technical stuff that needed fixing. And that was really where I got into the site, really realized how, navigationally it was just needing so much help and stuff. So within the first week or so, I had just plugged away at fixing all that stuff. And it's stuff you can have a VA do mostly as well. If you have that or you have access, you can kind of find someone on Upwork if you need for most of it. And I recategorized the site, added a couple plugins to get it, and did some site speed work. And then I realized I needed to do two things. It didn't have any buttons, for getting people over to Amazon. And then when you went and read some of these individual reviews, they just were like these huge walls of text. So then I started going through and just breaking up all the articles. I didn't change any of the content. I just kind of was trying to find little breakpoints so I could get, 2-3 sentence paragraphs. And I added AAWP plugin. So I added, just buttons basically to give people. I put buying guides or top 3 choices at the top of the articles.
Okay,
saying, hey,
here's tables or something.
Exactly, some tables. Here's the best one. Here's the budget one. Here's the and then for the individual product reviews, didn't have to do that. So just did AWP buy buttons and stuff. And that took about a week or two. But within the first month, the revenue doubled just because of that.
Wow.
So we just got a lot more people over to Amazon. And so a lot more people bought. I think that a lot of the articles were clearer. They were easy to read and understand. I didn't really change any of the content. Just fixed the site up technically, added some buy buttons, broke the text up, and it doubled the site's profit.
And it was, at that point, it wasn't increased traffic. It was just purely monetized better, structured better, getting more people to Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the traffic was almost the exact same the first month I bought it as the month before.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's kind of a hidden gem, like well done finding a site that was kind of under monetized in that way, right? Being able to make some of those quick wins, to be able to do that. The technical fixes, I will say that's important. So let's talk about then how you increase the traffic. What did you do to increase the traffic there?
Yeah, at that point, and it's also nice to do that just because you get to know the site, when you're fixing all the stuff, all the technical stuff, or even if you're just putting it together to give it to a VA, and then you're getting into the articles and you're adding, buttons and you're breaking up text. Even if you have somebody do all that, I ended up recategorizing the site. So I felt like I knew the site fairly well at that point. And at that point, it was pretty clear to me. First off, because I bought a site that hardly had any backlinks, I kind of decided, hey, I think if I just build some, just a few links, not too many links, but if I build a couple links, maybe 1 or 2 a month, 2 or 3 a month over the next couple of months, and then I add informational content, then I think that kind of became basically the plan that I wanted to follow. There was a lot of low hanging, and again, I hadn't done this keyword research before I bought the site, but I did some keyword research and just saw a lot of really long tail informational keywords that we could write that would really help bolster the site out and make it not just all Amazon affiliates. So started doing that, started researching that, went and hired a writer on Upwork. Got a writer specifically focused for this site, took some of those, writing guides and SOPs I prepared for my other site, applied them to this site, and then just started building some really generic, homepage kind of branded anchor text links through guest posting, and just started reaching out to just get a couple a month. And so that basically by month 2, that plan was ready. At the end of the first month, I was doing the keyword research. At the end of the first month, I was starting to do a little bit of outreach. And so then the second month, had the writer hired, had that all ready to go, had the keywords I wanted to focus on, and started writing and publishing content on the site, and then started building probably a couple of links in the second month.
Okay. So let's review some of that. Was the informational content that you were adding, was the idea to really be adding content clusters around, you've got your product review or your best of keywords? Were you trying to add related keywords so you kind of were filling out these categories or clusters?
Yeah, basically each all of the product reviews centered around basically one topic. One it's in a niche that is kind of focused around a large topic, and then there's just so many individual products inside that topic. But the topic itself has a lot of questions, which I think a lot of niches, people have a lot of questions about them. And so the great thing is that when I would write an informational piece of content and it was focused around a question on the niche, honestly, you could get in there and it would apply to almost 50% of the content that the individual product reviews we'd written that came with the site, it would apply to that. You could internally link to it. It would make sense. So it's just one of those situations. And I think there's a lot of niches like that where there's just so many questions about it, a lot of long tail questions that the informational articles really made a lot of sense to write. And then you could use that to internally link.
Right.
And I also thought, first off, it's great for internally linking, but second off, I want to get easy wins to get to that 10,000 mark so I could get on Ezoic. And so I wanted those long tail keywords that had really low competition. And so I could quickly get to 10,000 page views and get on Ezoic.
And so how long did it take some of those articles to start ranking, some of those question-based long tail keyword articles?
Yeah, probably, a month or two, and a few started getting traffic. I think the technical fixes plus some of the informational content, we were at 10,000 page views we went from 9,900 page views in April to 15,000 in May.
Wow, that's huge.
So basically April, I was able to apply for Ezoic after buying the site in, I think like January or February.
Yeah. Very good. And so how much did you start earning on Ezoic when you first, call it May or whatever the first full month is that you put the display ads up?
Yeah. So May happened and let's see, I can look it up right here. May, it added about $250 a month right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So $250 to $300 a month. And I don't know, I should look at what the RPMs are. They feel pretty average, kind of run of the mill. They're not like really low RPMs, but they didn't seem to be off the chart RPMs. But basically at that amount of traffic, it added an instant, I think about $300 to the site earnings every month.
Yeah. And so for people listening and to remind you, that was pretty early on, COVID, everything was getting shut down, March, April, and ad rates really tanked in March,
and I've come to learn that because the ad revenue's gone up.
Yes. So that's what I was going to say is your RPMs probably were low. Maybe they were average for the industry, but low historically speaking,
right.
Probably in May. And now they've definitely rebounded quite well, actually. And I think this fourth quarter is going to be higher than last year's fourth quarter in terms of display ad revenue. At least that's what it's looking like. Advertisers are coming back in full force, which is great. Great to hear. And so you're seeing that trend, it sounds like, as well. Yeah,
I get to see it from my marketing agency. It's interesting. The higher the ad rates go, the more interest we get in our services as people want to not pay those ad rates. But it's also great because the higher the ad rates are, the more, my sites make.
Yes.
And my other site did really well last year in the fourth quarter. When the RPMs just spike in fourth quarter because publishers are just spending so much more money, or businesses are, sorry. And I'm really excited about, it's already come back like you talked about, in terms of, I just didn't know that they were much lower in that site during April and May because of COVID. And now it's coming back. I'm really excited for what fourth quarter will look like.
So what's the breakdown now between display ad revenue and Amazon Associates revenue?
So for the last month, the site earned about $1,150, and I think it was about $750 Amazon, $750, $775, and then the rest, whatever it is, $400 or something like that, is on Ezoic.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome to be able to do that. Just the Amazon earnings sounds like probably about tripled, and then just added another $400 plus, dollars in display ad revenue. So well done there. So let's go back. You're growing the site. You've added, these informational keywords, these long tail sort of question-based keywords that I love too. Those are starting to work. You're building out the content clusters. And then you talk about building some links. You're building, a couple of links a month. You were doing guest posting. Talk about that process. How did you find guest posting opportunities?
Yeah, I've always, when building links, and it's just, you're not trying to go on this crazy link building campaign of building, 20, 30 links a month or whatever. It's just a couple links. For me, the easiest thing is to just go look at all the competitors and then go look at all the links that they've already built and then reach out to the same people. And so that's kind of what I did is I went, again, this industry or this niche, is fortunate in that there's a lot of other, seemingly affiliate looking sites that are in the space, as you call them, I think you call them doppelgangers.
Right. Yes.
So, it's like go out and find find as many of them as I could, grab all their backlinks, and then just start sifting through. There's definitely a chunky, I don't think I would want to go after. I wouldn't really want to link from them.
Right.
And just kind of start going through a couple checks to see if they're the type of link I would want. If they are, reach out, try to, find something unique on their site if I can. Try to, make some sort of connection, maybe by commenting on a couple of their blog posts first, just so it's not totally cold. But at the end of the day, just reach out and know that I only need a couple per month to kind of go through.
And so did you do all of that personally yourself, all the outreach and everything?
No, I was lucky in that I was able to borrow somebody on my team at the marketing agency to help out. I did all the research myself, though. So I did all the research and downloaded all the backlinks and then figured out all the ones I wanted to go after throughout the ones I didn't. But then I was able to hand that over to somebody at our agency to kind of, email out and all that kind of stuff.
So were most of the links like actual guest posts? You wrote a new article, they published it on their site, or was it a lot of like niche edits, like, existing articles that they had, hey, will you insert my link, on this page?
Right. Yeah. It turned out to be about half and half.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah. Some of them were, some of the informational articles that we wrote were just really nice, really informative articles. And I mean, I'd like to say that we went and added a lot of really good graphics to them. And I know that's what we should have done, but I just, in terms of for link outreach, right, make it look really, really pretty and really, really professional. But I only need like 1 or 2 links a month, and so right. I just didn't think I really needed to go at all that effort. And so some of them were really nice and easy to slide in some niche edits, which those were typically like informational posts that they would include. And so then the guest posts were always just basically directing people. The link I would include would be back to the homepage.
Yeah. So what was the outreach email like? Not exact word for word, but was it, the first contact sort of say, hey, I'd love to guest post on your site?
I actually was honest. I said, hey, I just acquired this site in this space, and I've been researching and learning a lot about the niche because I want to publish new content on it, and I came across your site, and I might say I like this article and I learned this. I tried to keep it short, but still try to make it personal. Mm-hmm. And then I would say I'd love an opportunity, whether it's writing a new piece of content for you on something that we've been doing lately, or something else you might have in mind. I just love to work with you in that capacity, and try to keep that open-ended as well. Mm-hmm. And then, a couple follow-ups, spread out over a week or two. And that was basically the process.
Yeah, that sounds good. What sort of response rate would you have on that in terms of getting a link?
Oh man, like 2%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to send a lot of emails.
Yeah. Yep.
And everybody who has a website nowadays knows that these emails just pour in. And it's, it makes sense. Like, you've really got to find a way to stand out in the inbox, and then you've got to get them to open it. And then when they open it, they've got to have some compelling reason to actually want to finish the email and then to respond to it. So it's really, again, at just trying to get a couple links a month. This wasn't some mass outreach. So mm-hmm. it was really just, I would probably get maybe 1 in 50 people it would end up becoming like, now I got a lot more responses,
right?
But probably about 1 in 50 ended up becoming a link.
Yeah, that makes sense. How important do you think the link building was to growing the traffic versus like the new content? Like, any sense of like what produced more results?
I think the new content produced results because it was already ranking on page 1 for a bunch of topics without links. And, the informational content started ranking pretty quickly. Within a couple of months, a bunch of them were ranking already. And I ended up putting up a decent amount of content. I probably had put almost 100 articles on the site. Okay. Since I bought it, 75 to 100. I think I probably have a number here. 87. There it is. I wrote it down. Okay. 87 articles. So I put a lot of content on there, but I think that's most of the reason. I probably built 14 or 15 links since I bought the site.
Okay.
And so, I think those helped. I definitely think, when you have a site that has, virtually no links. There were a couple that had come through, I'm sure naturally it looked like, but really not many links at all. And you put, 15 links on, I'm sure those first 15 links have a pretty big impact. But if I had to pick, the site was already getting traffic and was already earning money without any. And I think that adding a lot more content was probably the driver of most of the growth.
So you talked a lot about informational content that you put up there, 87 articles. So you put a lot of content. How much of that was just the straight informational content versus buying guides and affiliate type content?
So wrote informational content just straight for a couple of months. And I think it was probably out of the 87, it's probably 50, 55 of those articles were informational. Once I got on Ezoic, I stopped doing the informational content. And again, not because it wasn't going well, it was going great, but that was kind of my goal. So I said, let me pause there.
Right.
And then I turned my attention to writing kind of the best X for Y type post. And that's the type of article I've typically, when I make money on Amazon affiliates, that's the kind of article I make money with. I've never really made a ton on the individual product reviews, which is kind of why this site was so interesting. It was doing well with those individual product reviews, but there was just so many opportunities that I'd learned about in terms of these best X for Y, blah, blah, blah for under 100, blah, blah, blah for this situation, that sort of thing.
Microphone under $100.
Exactly.
Or best computer monitor for under $200.
Exactly. You can just go on and on for students or for, blah, 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 whatever it is. So,
yes.
So then started going after those and wrote about 30 or 35 of those over the coming couple of months, which basically lands us here.
Yeah. Very good. So that gives us a good idea of what you've been doing, certainly. Anything else that you did that you think had a big impact on the site, or any sort of, little tweaks that you made that are good strategies, you think, for people to hear?
Well, it's a bit of a shameless plug for Link Whisper, but I mean, you kind of called it out from the beginning. I've been working with you on that for a long time. I don't know when you started developing that, but I was one of the first ones. I think we started having initial phone calls about it.
Yeah, it's been over 2 years.
Yeah, so that was always my biggest frustration, is building internal links, and I just could not figure out a way to do it quickly and still maintain like relevance.
Right.
And so, anyways, yes, I really do think that the site had no internal links when I got it. Every article just sat on its own. And once you start adding informational content that's really relevant, the internal link opportunities really open up. Mm-hmm. Once the informational articles start getting traffic, then you're really, really helping the site out when you add internal links. And so, and again, it really is so easy with Link Whisper. It's so easy. And so yeah, once all those informational articles, I probably started doing it partway along. Once we got like 10 or 15 live, I was going back in and adding the internal links, but definitely once all those got live, I went back and just made sure that I was taking advantage of all the internal link opportunities. And so, that definitely, you can just see it in the traffic. It had to have helped, in my opinion. You could definitely see a correlation between articles that had gotten written that had no internal links published to them, and they'd been out for a couple of months, they weren't getting any traffic. And then 2 or 3 weeks after getting 5 or 6 internal links directed at them, all of a sudden now they're ranking on page 3. They're starting to pick up some long tail traffic. So that was a big deal. And I think that really helped it gets traffic spread out to articles that otherwise, I didn't see ranking until I added those internal links.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great to hear, obviously, for reasons that I like, but just in general, building internal links, it really is a smart strategy and an underutilized one. People build sites, and yes, pages do rank individually, but a link still counts as a link coming from other pages, even if it's from your own site. And so if you're not able to get external links pointing to that page, you can always build an internal link or 2 or 3 to that page. So that's good to hear that that's worked really, really well for you in helping out with your site structure as well. Any other tips for the site, things that you did that we haven't talked about yet?
I think we've talked about a lot of it. I mean, initially the big win was definitely adding, in the end, AAWP, but there's a bunch of those out there. Right. That doubled the site's revenue right away. Getting on a Zoic, ended up then therefore now it went from doubling to tripling. And then really, I think a lot of the other work has the informational content, some of the links. It's then added even more to where the site's now gone from 4 to 5x. But really, that's the bulk of what, it after the first month or two, it was pretty much just lots of content, a few links, and just rinse and repeat the next month.
Yep. So what's the long-term plan here? Are you going to flip the site and sell it here in a couple of months? Or are you going to keep growing it and just add it to the portfolio?
Good question. I mean, I said when I bought it, I was going to sell it. And I might extend the amount of time I have it a little bit longer than I anticipated. My goal was $1,000 to get it to a multiple of $1,000 a month, and then whatever the multiple 30, 35x on that multiple was. So hitting that in, August, September, maybe kind of say, man, and really, I mean, none of the kind of best X for Y articles that I've written, they're just starting to really rank on page 2 or page 3 because, so I feel like if I sold it now, I'd be giving somebody this, this gift of, 30 or 35
You've
awesome
invested
articles.
in a bunch of content already, right?
That's exactly right. Plus it's, if you look on, one thing we didn't talk about, but it might be helpful to people is look on Google Trends for when your specific niche, especially if it's one that you've never, you're just buying into for the first time, when it trends up and trends down, see if there's seasonality. This niche definitely trends up in Q4.
Okay.
It's a niche that looks like it does really well on Black Friday, and from seeing the sales last year, because I bought the site in January and got to see those trailing 6 months, it definitely does well throughout the holidays. So I'm hopeful that a lot of those buying guides that I wrote will start to rank well by kind of that Black Friday season.
Yep.
But either way, definitely hold onto it until after the Q4 sales bump, and then from there, see how close we are. But maybe sell it in early 2021. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that would be good. So to bring it all home, you paid about how much for the site? And how much would you value it at today? I know we talked about earnings and we could do the math, but let's just talk about the numbers.
Well, I paid $7,750 for it. Mm-hmm. I have invested in the content and whatnot, probably about $5,000.
Okay.
That was my estimate that I've invested, maybe a little bit more. But the site, since I bought it, has profited over $6,000. So it's basically paid for the investment. Yep. And then I think today, if I went to sell it, especially given the upside, it'd probably be $35,000 to $40,000 what I could sell it for.
Yep, that sounds about right, based on the going sort of multiples and the earnings. That's awesome, man. So you could pretty close to pocket 30 grand, on the flip within 9 months. You're going to hold on to it a little bit longer, and who knows how much you'll be able to sell it for after the fourth quarter season. It might be worth quite a bit more if it has some good $2,000 a month months, hopefully for you over the fourth quarter. So congrats. I think you've done a good job sort of explaining all the steps that you took there. Any parting words or parting strategies, just anything else for people that might be looking to buy a site and grow a site?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the nice things, and Motion Invest does a good job about this because of the type of sites they sell. I think when you spend a lot of time in the beginning looking at the bigger sites, maybe on Empire Flippers or FE International, and it just, for someone who's never bought a site before, I just wasn't confident if I had to spend, say, $60,000 that I would make a good use of that investment. But buying a site for $8,000-ish in this case, it felt like if I were to really blow it, right. It's just a much more palatable, it's not a gamble to take, but just a much more calculated risk. But what I'm excited about now is taking this money and investing it now in a bigger site, is not pocketing it, but now taking, 35 or 40 today, hopefully maybe 50 or 60 I could get it to by next year, and selling it, and now buying that $60,000 site on Empire Flippers, or maybe buying two, $30,000 sites or something. And so I think that it certainly was a big revelation for me that I could make it a smaller purchase and do the work, and then gain the confidence and gain some upside in the cash flow that I made to then go maybe buy a bigger site and do something a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I love that strategy a lot. Is that the hope is that you can kind of keep rolling the wins over until eventually either you have a big enough site that is, I don't know, has some number that you're trying to hit, or will buying and building sites always be a side hustle for you? Like, are you looking to replace, the digital marketing agency income?
No, I'm not. Personally, I'm not.
Right.
I love building sites, but I like building sites on the side.
Yeah.
I like hiring a writer, but doing the keyword research. I like, coming up with a link building strategy, finding the links to pursue, but then having somebody do some of that more grunt work. I like that. I can do that on the side. I definitely want to do more of what I've just done. Maybe every single time I sell a site, I'm thinking big here, but if I sell a site, take a little bit of money off the table so that I have a little bit of that upside. I get to, profit a little bit and then put the rest back into another site or maybe two sites, and just kind of, I've got to be careful about not spreading myself too thin. So I don't think, more than one or two would make sense. But yeah, keep that model up. I'm definitely a little more high right now on buying a current site than I am about starting a site, just because it takes so long now for a brand new site out of the gate to really start doing well. I mean, following in niche site project 4, that took 9 months, 12 months before you really were stoked on it, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And really 18 months before it was making like, okay, this is good money now, a couple $1,000 a month, right?
Right. And you can get that really quickly. And these sites are aged, they're already ready to go. And so as long as you just do your due diligence, you can, at least with this example, for me, it showed me, okay, I can get some really quick traction. Whereas I've started my own sites and 15 months in, you're still publishing an article and waiting 6 months for it to rank or even show up.
Right.
So yeah, I like this model. It won't be full-time for me, no, but it's definitely something I'm going to do more of in the coming years.
Well, good. Stay in touch with me. Stay in touch with the Niche Pursuits audience. If you do end up selling, let us know how that goes. Or if you end up buying a new site, we'd love to hear those. Always be sharing in the either Facebook group or just, touching base with the community. People love the inspirational and motivational stories, which, you're doing here on the site. And I think that's fine, right? Not everybody has the vision that they want to do this full time, and that's okay. It's a great side income. It's a great side gig that you can, what I do love is that you can either do as much or as little as you want, right? You can outsource content or you can do it yourself. You can outsource link building or you can do it yourself. And so figure out what works for you, like you've done, Jared, and you can grow a business out of it, definitely. So having said that, if people do want to go see what sites are available, at least on Motion Invest, they can go to motioninvest.com. There's lots of other places that people can buy sites, of course. Motion Invest, we really try to sell sites that we vetted, that we feel, don't have spammy backlinks or anything like that. And they're usually the smaller content site, right? Making anywhere from $50 to maybe up to a couple $1,000 a month is kind of what we focus on there. So with that, Jared, I just want to thank you for coming on the Niche Pursuits podcast and sharing your story. It's been great catching up again. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.